Alright folks, today I'm going to tell you a story that happened in 1845 but feels like you forgot to save your coordinates after opening a portal in Minecraft and entering the Nether. And believe me, this story is so absurd that if Disney made an animated movie out of it, there would be so many things to censor it would be rated R18+. But anyway, let's get into the topic. In 1845, the British Navy says, "Guys, there is something called the Northwest Passage. We can go through there and reach Asia by taking a shortcut." And this idea sounds so cool that they prepared two of the most advanced ships, HMS Erebus and HMS Terror, and they put the latest technology of the time on these ships. Steam engines, heating systems, so much canned food that even a modern prepper would say, "You overdid it." There is even a library on the ships because, according to their estimates, this journey will take maximum 2 to 3 years, and then they will be welcomed like heroes when they return. Spoiler alert, none of them returned. Now they put Sir John Franklin in charge of this expedition, a 59-year-old man who was at an age where he should be retired by modern standards. But he got the job because he wrote "has Arctic experience" on his CV. Although that experience was like, "Once I almost starved to death in northern Canada and had to eat my shoes." But the British said, close enough. When the crew of 129 people set off, everyone was very excited. Families were bid farewell, newspapers headlined "Historic Discovery," and the ships left England in July 1845. The last place they were seen was Baffin Bay. They encountered a whaler ship there, said hello, said "see you guys," and then, poof, lost, completely, no news, no sign, as if they disconnected from the server. 2 years pass in England and no one is worried because they say they have supplies for 3 years. Calm down. But the third year comes, the fourth year comes, still no news, and this time everyone goes into panic mode. Lady Franklin, John Franklin's wife and the real MVP of our story, starts a campaign, pressures the British government, and finally the government says, okay, we will start a search and rescue operation. And here things get interesting because the largest search operation of the 19th century is launched to find Franklin. Exactly more than 30 different expeditions are sent, some from the sea, some from the land. Even a few come from the Alaska side. And during these searches, the map of the Arctic is completed so much that ironically the people looking for him complete the job Franklin was supposed to do. This is a total task failed successfully moment. In 1850, the first clues begin to be found. They find 3 graves on Beechey Island, belonging to 3 crew members. They died in the winter of 1846, and the graves are so well preserved, because everything in the Arctic is like a natural freezer, that the corpses are still recognizable. But the real shocker is, signs of lead poisoning are found in the autopsy reports of the... In 1854, things take an even darker turn because an explorer named Dr. John Ray gathers information from the local Inuit people, and the Inuit tell him this. "Yes, we saw white men in the south, very thin. They looked hungry, and on some corpses, there were signs of cannibalism." Boom. England is shocked. They say, no, our gentlemen would never do such a thing. Lady Franklin personally starts a smear campaign against Dr. Ray. Charles Dickens writes articles saying the Inuit are lying. Maybe they are cannibals. Let's come to the Star Wars part of the story. In 1859, an explorer named Francis McClintock finds a note on King William Island. This document, known as the Victory Point Note, says the ships got stuck in the ice between 1846 and 1848. Franklin died on June 11, 1847. And on April 24, 1848, the remaining 105 people decided to abandon the ships and start walking south. Now imagine, these people are in the coldest, most desolate place in the world, at -40 to 50 degrees, poisoned, about to die of starvation, struggling with scurvy, trying to walk, and where is south? The nearest settlement is more than 1,000 kilometers away. This distance is equal to going back and forth between Istanbul and Ankara 10 times, but in the version full of snow, ice, and polar bears. Other evidence McClintock found is also horrifying. They find a boat, and inside the boat 2 skeletons, a lot of unnecessary items, and the most absurd detail. The weight of the boat is almost a ton, meaning these people act as if they are striving to die like gentlemen, not to survive. This is something like the Arctic version of the Dursleys and Harry Potter. Returning to the cannibalism topic, modern science proved the Inuit were right. Cut marks, fracture marks, and even cooking marks were found on bones found in the 1980s and 1990s. So yes, the situation got so bad that people had to do this to survive. And an important point here, even while doing this, they seem to have followed the rules. They used the people who died first. This is just survival instinct. The biggest discoveries happened in 2014 and 2016. Parks Canada team, using underwater robots and sonar technology, finds HMS Erebus in 2014 and HMS Terror in 2016 near King William Island. The ships are in relatively good condition, preserved underwater, and there are still examinable artifacts inside. Thanks to these discoveries, some gaps in the story start to fill, but there are still unanswered questions. Why did they abandon the ships so early? Why did they carry so many unnecessary items? And most importantly, what happened in the last days? No one knows because there were no survivors. Now it's time for lessons to be learned from this story, and I will speak with a Discord mod attitude here. First, technology can't solve everything. The British had the most advanced ships, the best equipment, but they underestimated the power of nature. This is like going to the Ender Dragon with full diamond armor in my craft and falling into lava. I was prepared, but it wasn't enough. Second, listening to local knowledge saves lives. Inuit had lived in the Arctic for thousands of years. They knew how to survive, but the British said, "We know better," and they all died. This is a total skill issue situation. Third, pride kills. The decision to abandon ships, carrying unnecessary items, not asking for help. All of these were because of British honor, and the result? 129 people died, none returned. Fourth, and most importantly, history exists to teach us. The Franklin expedition failed but provided enormous information for subsequent discoveries. The Arctic map was completed, survival techniques were improved, and the Northwest Passage was finally discovered. The year is 1845. The Industrial Revolution is at its peak and humanity is pushing the boundaries of exploration. The British Empire, the superpower of the time, is looking for a new trade route, the Northwest Passage, a sea route connecting the Atlantic and Pacific through the Arctic Ocean. This would be a game changer, a shortcut for trade with Asia. For this mission, two of the most advanced ships of the time are prepared, HMS Erebus and HMS Terror. At the helm is Sir John Franklin, an experienced but somewhat controversial polar explorer. With a crew of 128 men, they are supplied with 3 years' worth of provisions, including 8,000 tins of canned food. On May 19, 1845, they set sail from Greenheath, England, with great hopes and the cheers of the crowd. The last time they were seen by Europeans was in late July 1845 by a whaling ship in Baffin Bay. After that, silence. Complete, deafening silence. 2 years pass, and there's still no word from the Franklin expedition. Lady Jane Franklin, Sir John's determined wife, pressures the Admiralty to launch a search. This kicks off one of the largest search and rescue operations in history. Dozens of ships, both British and American, scour the Arctic. In 1850, the first clues are found on Beechey Island, 3 graves belonging to crew members and a campsite. But no sign of the ships or the rest of the crew. Years turn into a decade. The mystery deepens. In 1854, explorer John Ray, while surveying for the Hudson's Bay Company, meets local Inuit hunters. They tell him a chilling story. A few years prior, they had encountered a group of about 40 white men, starving and desperate, heading south. Later, they found their bodies. The Inuit also had items from the expedition, like silver forks and spoons. And then, the most shocking revelation. The Inuit reported evidence of cannibalism among the crew. This news horrifies Victorian England. Charles Dickens himself writes articles defending Franklin's honor, refusing to believe British sailors would resort to such savagery. But the evidence is there. In 1859, a search party funded by Lady Franklin finds a note in a stone cairn on King William Island. This note is the key. It states that the ships got trapped in the ice in September 1846. Sir John Franklin died on June 11, 1847. In April 1848, the 105 survivors, led by Captain Francis Crozier, abandoned the ships and decided to walk south towards the Back River in Canada. It was a desperate, doomed march. So what went wrong? It was a perfect storm of disaster. The canned food, which was supposed to keep them alive, was poorly soldered with lead, leading to widespread lead poisoning. This would have caused severe physical and mental health problems. The Arctic winters were unusually harsh, and the decision to walk south through an unforgiving and unknown territory was a fatal gamble. For over 150 years, the final resting places of the ships remained a mystery. Then, in 2014, a Canadian search team found the wreck of HMS Erebus, and in 2016, HMS Terror was found, almost perfectly preserved, in Terror Bay. These discoveries opened a new chapter in the story, allowing researchers to piece together the final days of the expedition. The Franklin expedition has taken a lot of place in popular culture too. There is a TV series called The Terror, made by AMC, tells the story in a horror style, and also adds a supernatural element, putting a mythological monster named Tunbak. The series is not perfect, but 10 out of 10 in terms of atmosphere. Adapted from Dan Simmons' novel of the same name. Watch if you are interested, but be ready because it is very depressing. Also, there are effects in the music world too. There are references in Nightwish's song The Greatest Show on Earth. Even some folk songs tell this story because tragedy is universal and affects people. Finally, the most important thing this story reminds us: nature doesn't care. History is ruthless, and sometimes even with the best preparations, everything can go wrong. But the human spirit, thanks to people who don't lose hope like Lady Franklin, continues to search for the truth, and maybe even 170 years later, answers are found. Franklin and his crew didn't return, but their stories will live forever, and we, here, in the year 2026, on YouTube, will continue to tell them, because history is not just about what happened in the past. It's about how we tell it today and what we will remember tomorrow. Alright friends, the video ends here. If you watched this far, you are a real legend. Tell me in the comments, what would you do if you were in this situation? Would you stay on the ship or walk south? And which historical fail would you like to see in the next video? Titanic, Dyatlov Pass, or something else? Let's meet again. Take care of yourselves, and don't forget, always save your coordinates. Otherwise you can be another lost expedition of history too. See you.